Morning, everyone. I thought I'd do a quick balance this morning around how it's okay to be different. It's okay to be in the minority. It's okay. And I say that as someone who grew up in a small town outside Brisbane, Australia, and I was sort of one of those ones who always made my own clothes. I had a bit of a I thought I was going to be a fashion designer until I was about 20 years old, and then I found Natural Therapies when I was 21, and from then the rest is history. But I had never met a naturopath. I had never met a massage therapist. I had never met a kinesiologist each time before I started studying. So I started studying naturopathy, and lo and behold, soon after that, maybe 2 years later, I met my first naturopath. When I did my massage course, I had never received a massage from anyone. And next thing, I'm a massage therapist, and I was massaging people who, knew what it was like to be massaged. I had no idea. And then when I studied kinesiology, same again. A friend, one of my good buddies, Linda Hoggard, she had had an hour of kinesiology, and one day I'm massaging her and her body felt totally different. And that made me go, oh my God, you're, compared to 1 week to the next. I'm like, what's going on? And she said, well, I had an hour of kinesiology yesterday. And of course, my brain went, what's that? And next thing, 6 weeks later, her and I were both booked into a kinesiology course. So I tend to have that sort of personality. If I find out about something, I really like to research it, which is why the last year I'm in the minority, not believing what mainstream media is telling us, not believing the authorities that I believe don't necessarily have our best interests at heart, and I think there's a bigger thing going on. And I think that this is one of those times in history when I feel really okay to be in the minority, but it is putting me at odds with people I love and people I respect. And funny story actually was that on Saturday night I was out to dinner, and some of my very, very, very mainstream humans in my life who have massive respect for one of the people there started going on with much of the stuff I've been listening to in the last year. Listening to the German American lawyer who's working with 1,000 lawyers to look at the PCR testing, and drmccullough.com and Judy Mikovits, and he just started chatting about how isn't it interesting that we're being told one thing and yet all of these other experts around the world are looking into what's behind, follow the money, follow the money, follow the money, and there's just potentially something else going on. So I feel very, very, very okay to be in the minority in the last year because I'm reading a lot of scientific papers. And I heard the term the other day, scientism. Scientism is simply believing the status quo and trusting. It's the people who say the science is settled, the science is settled, the science is settled. That's scientism. And there is scientism around the fact that everything is safe and effective without proof. There's scientism around which drugs can or cannot be used, and zero effectiveness, when things have got 60 years experience, and anyway, it's just funny. There's been so many studies done on masks over the last 20 years. And really, if we've watched X-Files, we know that you need to be wearing a head-to-toe, although they did do that in Melbourne recently. They put people in garbage bags, to move them from one hotel to another, which is just bloody funny. So, you've got to laugh, and you've got to sort of think, okay, they're politicians, they're not scientists. The scientists behind the politicians, they're being paid fairly decent money to push some agenda. That's my belief, and yes, I know I'm in the minority. So let's do a balance now around, because I grew up, by the time I was 21, I was already studying natural therapies, and then my hubby and I and kids, we became vegetarian for 20 years. So once again in the minority. We didn't drink alcohol for 10 years, once again in the minority. When we arrived up in Cooktown, North Queensland, the dude who picked us up from the airport said to us, well, as long as you do pig shooting and fishing and drink, you'll be fine. We were vegetarian, we didn't eat fish, we didn't eat pigs, and, obviously we weren't drinking at that stage. So we've made up for it since, but anywho, just funny. So I'm used to being in the minority, I'm used to copping flack. I don't like it, but I'm used to it. I've got a fairly hard hide. There's a lot of stubborn humans in my family, and even though we sort of come from all, I've got doctors and teachers and scientists and lawyers and all sorts of things in my family, so it's very interesting where people are sitting with this current year. And anyway, I think it's okay to be in the minority. It's okay to have free speech. It's okay to speak your truth. It's okay to be looking at everything out there and thinking, follow the money, who's paying this person? Follow the money, who's paying this person? And as a naturopath, I've been taught that over the last 25 years of going to seminars, listening to researchers from around the world who would say exactly that. For example, and I'm not sure where this is around the world, but for example, a lot of the anti-dairy industry research comes from the soy industry. A lot of the anti-soy industry research comes from the dairy industry. Now, regardless of whether you like soy or dairy, that's sort of interesting. A lot of the anti-meat stuff comes from the vegetarian industry. A lot of the anti-vegetarian stuff comes from the meat industry. In fact, here in Australia, my brother's been a vegetarian for 35 years. And he was on the website of the meat industry in Australia. And hey, I'm a meat eater again. We've been eating meat again for about 6, 7, 8 years because we were on our way to diabetes. Our bodies could not metabolize plant proteins properly, and we were both on our way to diabetes. That's why we reversed it and sort of came out and started eating meat again. It took 2 years for us to make that decision. So we don't do anything quickly because we would doing the vegetarian thing because of the animal side of things, not for health. We sort of did it because of the animals. So, whereas, and people do vegetarian and veganism for many, many different reasons. And in my clinic, if people are doing it for their health, then that's a whole different ball game, because sometimes they've just given up junk food and they've gone to veganism, and that's going to be healthier than eating junk food, so they'll be feeling better. But I had a acupuncturist many years ago. I had an argument with him which was very unprofessional because it was in front of 20 people at a breakfast situation, but he said he'd been feeling so much better since he was drinking 2 litres of fruit juice every morning. And I said, well, of course you're feeling good. You're having 2 litres of sugar in the morning. Why wouldn't you be feeling good? And he said, no, it's helping my liver cleanse and this and that and something else. And I said, no. Fruit juice is filled with fructose. The liver metabolizes fructose, and fructose is one of the number one reasons for non-steroidal fatty liver disease. And he looked at one of the guys in our group who had, at the time, 15 years more experience than me, and Wayne was like, well, yeah, I agree with Madonna. That's true. That's been proven. So it's one of those things that, people can feel good doing something, but it's not necessarily the reason they think it is. So does that sort of make sense? So, for example, if you do change your diet, sometimes it will be because you've taken some crap out that was really causing you an issue. So you might think it's a change in diet, but it might actually be the taking the crap out that's really helped you. So being in the minority, it's and it's funny because anyone who's against natural therapies go, oh, all these people are making billions of dollars, it's $1 trillion industry and yada yada yada. And what they don't realize is that to make good quality natural therapies, you need real ingredients. So unlike the drug companies which synthesize things and make something out of nothing or something out of very little, we need real ingredients. And I was reading last night that one of the companies here in Australia, does 64,000 tests per year in order to ensure the raw ingredients are good, and that all the way through to production, they've got the actual ingredients in there that they say are in there on the bottle. Now, that's just one of our companies. Now, not many companies do that, but that's a pretty jolly impressive thing. And they spend $3.7 million as a company. Now, we're in Australia. We don't have 300 million people here, so that's a lot of money to spend to ensure that your products are good quality. Most people don't do that. Anyway, part 2 coming up.